Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Budo Jake podcast. I'm Budo Jake, and today I'm sitting down with Kevin Howell. Kevin owns and teaches at his gym, the Jiu-jitsu League in Long Beach, California. It's an Atos affiliated gym. Atos is the organization run by world champion Andre Galvao. I've known Kevin for a long time. He's probably one of the first guys I met on the mats at Gracie Barra, America back in the early 2000s. Kevin's also an author. He wrote 2 best-selling jiu-jitsu books, including Jiu-Jitsu University with Saulo Ribeiro and Drill to Win with Andre Galvao. Now, before we get into the episode, I'd like to talk to you about Kaizen Kettlebells. Kaizen Kettlebells are available in 3 popular sizes, 12 kilograms, 16 kilograms, and 24 kilograms. You can find them on BudoVideos.com, and we ship to anywhere in the 48 United States. There's a reason why a lot of jiu-jitsu guys use kettlebells. They develop a lot of the small muscles that are used to balance and deal with a lot of the chaotic situations that happen during sparring. To improve your jiu-jitsu today with a Kaizen Kettlebell, get them on BudoVideos.com. All right, let's get into it with Kevin Howell. Kevin, it's great to be with you again.
Oh man, Jake, this is like years in the making. I'm stoked to be here.
When I think back of some of my best memories with you, one of them was back, I think it was 2006. We went to a Nino Schembri seminar up at Shootbox in LA. Nino was one of my favorite guys, and he wasn't here, living here. He was living in Brazil, but he came up, and I think you heard about it. He's like, "Hey, let's go see Nino," and what a blast that was.
Oh my God! Now I remember that location. Was it the one behind the gas station?
Yeah, it was kind of a shitty
Santa Monica. I'm assuming that place is long gone.
Right.
Okay.
And then another one of my favorite memories with you is back at the Budo headquarters one night. We were training, and we never knew who would stop in, but you called me up and said, "Hey, do you mind if I bring someone by?" I said, "Yeah, any of your friends are welcome." And he goes, "All right." He said, "You had Andre Galvao just hanging out with you that night, so you'll bring him by."
I know.
That was awesome.
And there is video footage of that session somewhere.
Yep.
And so I don't know if you have it or I have it, but someone has it.
Yeah. So you were friends with Andre for a long time, right? He would stay at your place when you come visit?
Yeah. So we started writing the jiu-jitsu books, and then Andre got in touch with us because he was just coming into the States, and he was training over, I think, at New Breed at the time. And I was like, okay, I have Saulo. I don't know how to write a book yet, but I know I can do it. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of friends with Johnny Ramirez. And so I'm making this more convoluted than it needs to be. I knew Johnny through Gracie Barra USA or GB America. I forgot what they were calling it at the time. And he would come and train. And then Johnny would say kind of off hours, like, "Hey, come on up here and train with me." And so there was this black belt Al at Baja at the time. And we were friends. Mm-hmm. And we would kind of go and cross train with Johnny because they were friends. And so we kind of built a little relationship of like, hey, when you're in the area, we'll maybe just do rounds, no teaching, nothing like that. And so we'd roll 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off, me, him, and Al, or whoever else Johnny brought. And through that, we started learning about like the guys that were coming over to New Breed to train. And so at the time, all the Brasa guys would come and other gyms. And so then we kind of got to know Owano a little bit. And they're like, "Hey, come on over. There's really good training right now." So I would kind of sneak over there and train with those guys. Mm-hmm. And I met Galvao through that. And I thought, wow, this guy, I knew vaguely of him. I saw some of his brown belt like snippets here and there. And I knew he was really good. And then we started training and we kind of hit it off. And I'm like, dude, I'm writing jiu-jitsu books right now, quote unquote. Hadn't written a single book yet. Right. And he goes, "Let's do it." So we both were kind of like winging it in a sense. And so we just became friends. And then when he'd come out to the States, we were supposed to do a project together, but we would spend most of the time, he would live at my house for like, a month or two, and then we would go and we'd commute to the same gyms together. And then when we'd come back, we'd eventually shoot this book that we were always talking about doing. Mm-hmm. And so then we just kind of became friends over the fact that we had the shared experience of like, he'd be at my place, we'd drive up to the gym we were both training at, we'd come back home every day. He needed a place to crash. Mm-hmm. And so it was more about right place at the right time. And for him, because he was extremely poor, and we were too, you know. And so he would just kind of show up and stay with me and my wife in our apartment. And so we would roll in the living room and do kettlebell workouts. It was kind of cool, yeah.
You know, a lot of people talk about when they were poor, when they were younger, as the good old days. Do you think about it like that?
Well, seeing as I'm poor again right now, it's like very cyclical for me. You know, like went from like running a pretty successful gym to now kind of starting back over and scratch. And it's a little daunting. You know, you look at it and you go, you take a big deep breath and you go, okay, now it's weird in your 40s to be starting it up again. And of course, by the time you hit your 40s, you have a whole nother set of issues in your life to deal with.
By issues, do you mean children?
Yeah, children for sure. I love my boys, but they prevent you in a way from just like purely chasing your dreams. You know, like, so you can't be quite as selfish as you are when you're just single or with your spouse, you know. So that definitely changed it. And then just injuries, because you train long enough, you get a bunch of injuries, and they kind of build up, and then you go, like you doing yoga now, you start going, what am I going to do now to make sure I can actually go further with this? You know? Right.
Which brings up an interesting question for you. You know, we've both been in martial arts almost our whole lives, and after 40, I realized I need to really take recovery seriously, and I started doing yoga almost on a daily basis. And suddenly I didn't need to go to a chiropractor. I didn't need to go to a massage, and I just feel like, man, it's so rejuvenating. Have you found anything like that in your life?
Well, so kind of. So I had a bad ACL tear in like 2008. I ended up having the surgery around 2009. And then right after surgery, I went back and did a competition. And I remember my second fight, my ankle was like, he was attacking just straight ankle. But dude, this guy was like the strongest Brazilian I've ever fought. And I was just like, it was on my ACL knee, and it really like kind of freaked me out. So I came back into training, and I realized that like I was really kind of favoring one side as I got through my rehab and everything. But in that process, then I herniated a disc in my back. And I realized, like, because I was off kilter and all these things. And so at that point, I really, number one, I changed the way I trained. I was less inverted. I started really thinking about like just my movement better. And then I started stretching and doing like rehab. Now, of course, the issue's still there. Like, it still flares up and blows up. But I do a lot of physical therapy through our doctor and stuff, and he's constantly giving me different exercises and different stretches on my hip flexors to keep it kind of more supple. And then I surf all the time. You know, I try to go as much as I can. If I can go every day, I would. And when I'm surfing too, I ride a little more foam now. You know, I make sure I'm not just throwing myself into bad situations. And I've noticed that like just being more mindful of my body, having a way to clear my head outside of jiu-jitsu, and then just doing a lot more PT on it has helped a lot.
That's cool. So Kevin, you and I are both have been part of bigger gyms, of course with Gracie Baja way back 16 years ago.
That's crazy.
And I've also been part of a small gym, and there's pluses and minuses to both. I like them both for different reasons. You know, of course, at a big gym, you have big names coming through all the time, and a wide variety of training partners. Smaller gyms, you have less rules and restrictions, and more freedom, and maybe more of a family environment. Right. Which do you prefer? Because you have obviously an Atos gym, which is part of a bigger network, but it's also you and your wife running it. So, what's your take on that?
Okay. It's weird. So when I was starting out, we were at, I would say, just a normal gym in California. There were no mega gyms yet. And by mega gym, I would mean something like any of these places that say the name plus HQ. You know, I'm Alliance HQ or Henzo HQ, whatever that means. And so those gyms at the time were still little small gyms wherever they were. And I really enjoyed the experience. And then when we trained at Baja together, that was the first time I think I saw someone with a vision to really like blow jiu-jitsu up across coast to coast in Carlos. And so I enjoyed it though. Like it was really fun for me coming from a smaller gym where we talked about people like Solo and Hoyler, and they were kind of the legends in that gym that we were talking about. Then I'm training all of a sudden Carlos Gracie Jr., Marcio Feitosa is teaching us classes, Pedro Pano's in the corner, Roger Gracie and Henzo are practicing jumping jacks, and Kira Gracie's there every single night. And I have to say I was a bit starstruck. It was like, I felt like it was a super cool experience for that time.
Yeah.
And so it's something where when people even ask me now about like, oh, where do you learn a lot of your fundamentals? I'm like, well, for sure I learned a lot of it from that period, because I thought they had it super sharp. It felt really new to me. But if I'm being honest, I was really just starstruck with the Gracie name, and remember at the time Baja was like, they were the number one team.
Yeah.
You know, and so it felt kind of, I'm sure it's like what people feel like today training an AOJ or Atos HQ, and you're seeing all these guys that are winning everything, that have a list of medals. And to me, I was really impressionable to that. So I thought that was really cool. Now, after that, I trained back to small gyms. I trained a little bit of Leo and Galval because they were still affiliated through Braza at the period. And on the personal interactions, I really liked the small gym atmosphere more. When the little champions and stuff would come through, it was really exciting because you had more of a personal relationship with them. It wasn't like, not to say it was this way at Baja, but it was less of a closed door, champs over here, noobs and nerds over here, you know? And so I felt like we got to be really immersed in the smaller gym. And so when we opened, I had no delusions because I'm not like a jiu-jitsu champion. I don't have like a list of medals and stuff. My medal drawer is very small, you know? And so for me, running a gym where it's really about just jiu-jitsu and training and improvement, and it is a family gym. You see my kids running around. We've had a very personal relationship with our students. Mm-hmm. And so I enjoy that more now. And you probably couldn't pay me enough money to train at a mega school right now.
Yeah.
And no offense to them, because I do think they serve a purpose for the people they're looking for that goal and end. But for me, I also think as an owner, it's really hard to keep relationships with people when you're seeking to just blow up and be super huge. Then you really need is just masses of people.
Right.
And the more people, you become more of a school principal than you do of a, you know, the favorite math teacher, you know what I mean? And so.
Yeah. And I've known you for a long time. I know you're a great teacher, and I know you care about your students. And every student, the few guys that I know that do train with you say what great care they're given here, which that's probably not something you're going to get at a mega school.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
I think you're definitely going to be hit with a like, your billing's late.
Yeah.
You know, like what's going on? We're sending you the collections,
right.
And there's that buffer between you and the coaches, and it's honestly now, it used to be the wives, right? Mm-hmm. Like the wife of the coach would be kind of like the mean money person, right? Mm-hmm. And now it's like a whole management team that may not even train jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a 24-hour fitness where they may not even care about helping you or your sob story, right? They're just like, you ever seen the collections this month? Right. It's just different, you know?
So Kevin, you have an Atos school, but a lot of white belts, when they walk through the door, I bet they don't even know what that means. This is just a neighborhood gym, and whatever name's on the wall is they're going to come into. But of course, there's value in the name, and sure. There's a reason that you have that. But are there any characteristics of an Atos school that don't really change from Atos school to Atos school?
Well, so I don't know, to be honest. So there's certainly a big network now. Andre has a lot of affiliates. And so on one end, like me and Andre kind of got together and we wrote like a fundamentals curriculum. So every student gets a curriculum with me and Andre, and it shows like all the basic positions that they're going to learn roughly from like white to the end of white, blue belt type area. And so all the students will get that. Now, in terms of like what they're teaching, I don't know how much oversight Andre has over like his official affiliates, the people they're paying into the program and stuff. But with us, we definitely share a lot of ideas, in terms of like check out this move I'm working on, or pre-COVID, like post-COVID, it's been wild. But he would definitely be like, check out this cradle grip I'm doing, then I'll take it to the gym and we'll tinker with it. And so it's more of like a sharing of information between ours. But there's only really like 2 or 3 Atos schools in California. And now that AOJ is gone, I'm assuming the next one would be somewhere in Northern California.
Right.
And so I don't know how it works for the other ones, other than there's like a shared fundamentals curriculum.
Okay. But in terms of like a typical jiu-jitsu school, you guys teach some self-defense,
100%.
takedowns, and of course, sport jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. And so, for me, like we do a lot of super fundamental jiu-jitsu. Like right now, we're spending the next couple months just really getting deep into the closed guard. But that being said, like there's an easy crossover into like higher levels of jiu-jitsu with just closed guard techniques as well. So we do that. We have a lot of drilling here, and we have lots of different pods. They're doing lots of like high intensity drills that you'll see more like a Leandro Lowe type person training with. And we're very open to the new techniques. So that's one thing, is like, regardless of what's being taught, I'm really excited for all the new innovations, and so we get a lot of that from Andre, but to be honest, I pay attention to everybody, because it's to me, the Atos is just like, well, that's just kind of significant for my personal lineage. But for them, I don't think any jiu-jitsu school or team could be like 100% perfect. So I think it's important that you're paying attention to what everyone else is doing and be willing to like improve yourself and go, okay, well, maybe that move has evolved at this point and maybe it's even better. So, yeah.
When I think back of when we used to hang out when you were a blue belt, you were very passionate about jiu-jitsu then, and you were so knowledgeable about not only jiu-jitsu but judo and who the top competitors were and who does what. Do you have that same passion now that you did 15 years ago?
Oh, that's a tough one. Yes and no. I try to pay attention to everybody, but it's hard because like, so as the game evolves, right? There's all these people that I paid a lot of mind to when I was in my 20s and early 30s. They're no longer relevant in terms of jiu-jitsu is now. So look at this, like Meows are already not competing as much. So maybe, obviously they may have longer careers. I don't know what their injuries are like, but they'll become a marker for a generation, maybe a year or two ago. And then you have the next group of guys that are younger, and it's very hard because there's so many high-level grapplers and there's so many different events. It's just hard to keep track of. Like, so for example, when they have a fight to win event, I literally don't know who any of these people are. No offense to them, because they'll all probably just kick my ass. Like they're all probably awesome, but I just have no idea, because for us, the marker was like, is he a black belt world champion? Is he an IBJJF or CBJJ world champ? Maybe he does a CBJJO, or is it ADCC champ? And that was it. And so now there's so many guys that are good and they're able to make a living off of so many different venues. It's really hard for me to even decipher who's like the guy to follow, but I am kind of an Instagram nerd. I do follow a bunch of different Instagram handles that kind of show me like who's evolving. And then there's this kind of throwback guys like Wardzinski and stuff. They're kind of fun. But I follow a bit of everybody, at this point. And I try to look at technique series and see, what we can add to the game and where we could change things. I'm still a fan of Musimisi and guys like that. But yeah, I would say it's different in that I still follow a lot of jiu-jitsu, but I'm a little overwhelmed by it. And I'm a little bit like, I really don't know who all the good guys are anymore. Right. Even if you ask me about MMA, that's even like worse. which is cool because there's so much talent, but I'm just completely clueless.
Right. Some people would say that it's better now because there's so many events every weekend. There's an MMA event and a jiu-jitsu event going on. But I would kind of argue that the opposite is true. Back when there was, a Pride event every 3 months, it gave you a lot to look forward to, and it would be so hyped up by the time it came around. Now it's, even ask the biggest MMA fans, they don't know everybody. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah, Pride was the best, man.
Yeah, I think so.
Dude, the one time, so we were in, this is a great name drop story. I have to do it. We were in Las Vegas, and me and my wife were staying at her grandma's house. And so we're like, hey, let's go wakeboarding with some friends from high school. Ends up, we got a phone call from a mutual friend who was like, meet us at this bar in Summerlin in like 30 minutes. We're like, all right. So we go down there, and it's him, the bartender that they're friends with, and Vanderlei Silva. And we ended up just bar hopping with Vanderlei Silva all night. It was epic.
And back then, he was like the scariest guy on the planet.
Dude, the evening was like debauchery, man. And my wife is a very like sweet, nice person. Never saw anything bad in her life. And she was like, oh my God, what have you gotten us into tonight? And it was awesome. And it was a really fun memory. And so that time, so I tell you this story because she saw him, and we just kind of recently moved from Hawaii back to California. And we were watching, like in Hawaii, I'd show her pride fights of Vanderlei versus Sakuraba.
Yeah.
So she would see literally Sakuraba, who's this really sweet looking, nice guy, get absolutely demolished, bloodied up. Haley had never even seen a fist fight.
Oh, wow.
So she literally cried the first time she saw this. She's like, why would people do this to each other? Mm-hmm. Then she meets Vanderlei Silva, who she well knows who he is. She saw my VHS tapes of Pride. And she's like, you're the guy. You're the guy that beat up Sakuraba. And she told him, she's like blurted it out to him. And he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And he hugged her. I'm really nice. And it was just like super fun experience. And it was really cool. I'm sure he doesn't remember it, but we have pictures.
Right. That's awesome. Those guys were larger than life.
But yeah, I love Pride. Pride fighting to me was the pinnacle.
Even if they weren't all legit.
Lots of steroids.
Yeah.
Lots of steroids. Yeah. But what a freak show, huh?
Yep.
People literally like soccer kicking each other. How crazy was shootbox back then?
Mm-hmm. They were the team.
And I think that rule set of just absolute carnage in melee really, really favored them.
Yeah.
And so fun. BTT and like it was such a rad time.
Yeah. Those are the glory days for old guys like us.
Yeah, right. We're getting old.
So speaking of freak show, Kevin, I know that you love the martial arts, and lately in recent years, we've seen a little shift in the grappling world where they're bringing in kind of pro wrestling antics to hype up fights. Mm-hmm. And it probably works. It gets more eyes on the card, probably makes them a little bit more money, but I can't help but think that it takes away a little bit of the soul of martial arts. Judo guys don't do that.
Sure.
Sumo guys don't do that.
Sure.
Pro wrestlers do, and now jiu-jitsu guys are too. Do you think it's if you had a student that was wanting to hype up his match with some of those pro wrestling antics and calling out his opponent and calling him names and stuff like that, do you think that has a place in the sport or martial art of jiu-jitsu?
I think just in general, like beyond jiu-jitsu, I think it's just ridiculous. Like it's something that for me, I think everyone's so worried about their internet persona, how many likes they have, how many shares they have, how much it's back to that all publicity is good publicity. There's no bad publicity. And I disagree because so for me, if I were to be acting that way and then I have to come home to my two little boys and like explain myself to them and they know like how imperfect I am. We don't hide things from them. But if they were to see me just acting like another person that they know I am not, they would be really freaked out, and I think rightfully so. For me, like all of this hype machine, whether it be Connor or what you see now in jiu-jitsu, it's just really gross. And my favorite, honestly, like if I could look at two guys that really epitomize what I see as a jiu-jitsu martial arts, it's Roger Gracie and it's Marcelo Garcia. And the reason why is like, number one, these guys were world beaters. Of course, both are exceptional. They're both strong, but they were literally beating guys that were freak show, talent, strength, whatever they were doing. And they were beating them with just an exclamation mark. It was amazing. And then when they would beat this guy who, if you were to tell me like, hey, Kevin, you just tapped out Kavaka, in my heart, I'd be doing backflips. Like, I can't believe I did this. This is amazing. You never see them sprinting around the ring. You never see them kissing their hands and looking up to this guy. Nothing other than a blank face and a handshake.
Yeah.
And I think what it did to me is it showed me, like, number one, whether it was on purpose or not, it was like, they're not going to treat this like it's unexpected. Mm-hmm. They're not going to treat this like, can you believe I just tapped Kavaka? I'm going to sprint around. That guy is showing me he's almost shocked with himself.
Right.
And then you see Marcelo, it's like, considerate. Then you see Marcelo and these guys losing to guys. Jacare beat both of them, I believe, at one point. And they both were just like the same exact face.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like that, almost that stoicism in the tournament. To me, I think if I could teach my students that, I think it's far more empowering, number one, because your ego doesn't get sucked into the fight.
Yeah.
And you get to compartmentalize what you're doing in terms of you're in a conflict with someone, but you're really able to just make it strictly about the jiu-jitsu. Hey, your jiu-jitsu is better than mine. Good for you. You get the same blank face, the same kind greeting. Let's get off the mats.
Yeah.
And then, today my jiu-jitsu is better than yours. Same face, same consideration. And to me, that's the only way you're going to get someone like Roger Gracie, who came off of a very close match with Buchecha, to then coming back and having that definitive win against Buchecha. If he's the guy who's making this about his ego, it would be a very hard blow to his ego to then fight him after the first fight and then do what he did.
I think you're right.
But having the right mindset, I think that's a part of martial arts, is having, and like I said, I can joke and screw around a lot, but there's a time and place for it. And I think a lot of it just kind of turns into like bullying. I think it's really everything we shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, I agree with that, Kevin. And if you want to look at the kind of a root of how to win with class in martial arts, look at a sumo match. You'll never see any grandstanding after a win. It's always, like you say, a very stoic look on their faces, very respectful. But, jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu is not entirely from Japan. It's mixed with Brazilian culture, which doesn't always blend with Japanese culture. So it's confusing. But I hear what you're saying. And I think that of all these guys that are out there hyping things up and speaking ill about their opponents, guys like us, we've been in the game for a long time. We know they're not really like that. And I've talked to people that have taken private lessons. They'll say, that guy's really not like that at all. He's really super nice. So he's fake.
Well, so that's the thing. I haven't met someone who's like, they'll go see Gord Ryan. He's obviously very vocal on the internet and everything. And he's comical in his disses on people or whatnot. But everyone I know is like, yeah, when you see him after an event or in person, he's very affable. He's very friendly. He's very casual. Like, he's not, this is like an internet thing. And I'm just not into it. Yeah. I love his jiu-jitsu for sure, but I'm just not into that. That whole world to me is like, it's corny. Yeah. I think it's silly. I mean, in his defense, he does obviously seem to back it up pretty well, but I still think less is more.
Yeah, I agree with you. So Kevin, you've been in the martial arts for a long time. You see white belts come in your gym every day. What advice would you give to a white belt? What do you think is their most important characteristics?
Well, number one, I'd say if you're just starting off in jiu-jitsu, this whole idea, I mean, everyone says it's a bit of a cliche, leaving your ego at home. It's really, really important, and nowhere more important than a white belt, because I think you really establish good habits early. If I could tell a white belt to pay attention to his safety and the safety of his training partners, tap early, tap often when you're rolling, and get them to the point where they don't just hear that, because all the students hear this, but then a lot of the times they don't do it. Their egos get involved. But what I see happen a lot is people eventually develop something they're good at. They have an affinity for this area and this position, and they can get kind of trapped by their successes. And I think it's very, very important that white belts, in terms of technique, they learn how to work out of bad positions. They learned how to deal with submissions and get as bulletproof as possible. Then they can carry that into normal training. And those guys don't become the guys that care about, you didn't pass my guard, or I passed your guard, because the jiu-jitsu opens up. They get to be like, dude, you passed my guard. I'm just going to escape. And now I'm going to end up on the mountain by the end of the fight anyways. And getting people to not have so much ego, especially around certain positions, would be good. And I would say the one thing I would tell everyone is just, regardless of your station, your beliefs, your politics, whatever that is, just genuinely respect each other for the fact that we can't go this alone. And so that's one thing I'm always trying to talk to the guys is like, don't make this your high school. Make sure you guys have like a good relationship for sure. But you also have to be able to come in and accomplish your goals, and you're not going to do that by yourself. So like the respect is a big one for me. But more than that, it's really just the ego and dampening that ego and trying to steer away from like what you're naturally good at, and just really come to terms with the one that's hard is getting a guy who's kind of good to tap to a lower belt, without maybe teaching them or something. And it's like those type of little ego strokes. And I think we all are guilty of them in some level at some point. That's what we need to kind of like, quote, beat out of ourselves, is that it's a very undisciplined view of jiu-jitsu where you're like, I have to always win, or I always have to do good. And no, you just always have to improve. And it's very different, if you just change that mindset a little bit. So that's one thing we're always trying to do, is just have the students like focus on what jiu-jitsu self-defense is, which is getting out of bad positions, learning how to escape bad holds, and then that gravitates all the way towards obviously dominating someone. So that's kind of what, as we reopened, I've been focusing on more.
That's awesome. That's great advice. So to finish up here, Kevin, we talked about your books earlier, and you've written some of the best books in the art. Everybody should read Jiu-Jitsu University with Saulo and Drill to Win with Andre Galvao. Are you working on anything else? Yeah,
so me and Saulo, Saulo, to the best of my knowledge, moved back to Brazil.
Oh, didn't know that.
And so before he left, maybe he's still here. I don't know, actually. Before he left, we decided we're going to actually pursue a second book together. We haven't done much for that planning.
Is this a jiu-jitsu grad school?
Yeah, right? That'd be kind of cool. Well, here's the thing, to be honest, like every book is kind of like a time capsule. The thing that's good about Jiu-Jitsu University is you can take all those techniques and expand onto them in terms of what Jiu-Jitsu is now. And you can see what things you can adapt well. And you can also see things that maybe haven't aged so well. That kind of philosophy is what me and Andre did in shooting Drill to Win Part 2. So what we did is we took the entirety of Drill to Win. So that's my other project, Drill to Win 2. And we first went through everything in the book. And we said, doesn't work, dated. Oh, this works, but I do it better now. And so we updated all the techniques. And what we ended up with is about, maybe we kept around 70, 80% of those techniques. And of those techniques, that probably made up about 30% of the new book.
Oh, wow. It's going to be a big one.
It's humongous. Wow. And so it's gi and no gi, and it covers different areas. So what kind of happens when we write these is you have tons and tons of material, and then you have to kind of put everything into a box. Like, okay, we have a section on just the leg trap series. You have something on the crab ride. Like there's so many little like meta games in the book that we're just like, we're kind of blown away. And so our original thought was we would make it a 3 volume set, and it would just be like the Drill to Win Volume 2, because it's far surpassing the original content, because it's not necessarily just like Andre's talent showing in the technique. I think it's more of like his evolution in terms of like how technical he's become. And so it's really cool. It's really good. It's just, it's our daily nightmare at home is organizing this thing and writing all the captions and everything and making sure it all is a cohesive set. But you worked with Andre before. He works really hard. So he literally just filled in everything. We had Rolando and some of the other guys adding techniques, and Liera. And so that was really, really cool too. So we're eventually going to finish that. We just did a basics kind of book that we did for Andre. We sent to him. I think he's going to put it up on his website at one point. But nothing. COVID world, everything's been kind of crazy. Yeah.
Well, that's great. I can't wait to see the new book when it comes out.
Yeah, man. I want it. You know what? I want to actually print it too. Like, I know a lot of things are easier with ebooks, but I just love real books.
For sure. Me too. After looking at a screen all day, that's the last thing I want to do at the end of the night.
And it's so nice. Like when you get something sent to your house and it's like a big, heavy thing that you can feel and you can reference so much easier by flipping around. That's still what I prefer. Even I don't know if that's what the people want, but that's my personal feeling.
No, we still sell a lot of books.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, we'd love to carry it if it comes out.
Yeah, you guys have some really killer new or old books, used books. I'm always thumbing through there.
Yep.
But you know what gets me? Like I will look up like the old like ninjutsu books and like the old judo stuff. That's always what I look for on your website.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I kind of want to get this, or anything in Japanese.
Right. There's so much cool stuff out there.
Yeah. And I don't even speak Japanese.
Right. You can look at the pictures.
You do speak Japanese?
Yeah.
Dude, that's so rad. I wish. My sons through my wife are like, Haley's grandma's Filipino Japanese. So my sons are like the little biggest white patties, right? But culturally, they love that little smidgen of Japanese in them, and I think it's rad.
That's cool. It's
I
cool
think
to
it's
have
super cool.
that in their life. Well, Kevin, anything else you want to add? Where can people find you if they're in the Long Beach area or online?
Okay, if you're in the Long Beach area, we just reopened our gym after COVID. It's called Jiu-Jitsu League. We're an Atos affiliate, and we're really close to the freeway, 2nd and PCH in the Marina Pacifica Shopping Center. And I teach all the classes right now because everything's been kind of weird in the post-COVID world in Long Beach. We got kind of hit hard, and our mayor's folks died and stuff, and so it's been a big uphill battle just to get reopened. And so now we're open, and I'm super stoked. Just teaching classes every day, and the schedule should be updated. And you come on in and hang out and learn some jiu-jitsu, or just train, whatever that is. So. We're here all the time. And then other than that, just reach out to me on Instagram and Facebook. I always talk to people, and I will talk anyone's ear off. So
what are you on Instagram?
Kevin's Bears, lowercase, Kevins Bears, like the Chicago Bears. So
all right.
Hit me up.
Cool. Thanks for chatting with me today, Kevin.
Awesome, dude. Always a good time, Jake.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this conversation I had with Kevin Howell. I'd like you to get involved in the conversation as well. There's a comment section on YouTube, of course, where you can leave your comments. Tell me what you think about mega gyms versus small gyms. Which one do you prefer and why? How about the topic of pro wrestling antics in jiu-jitsu? Do you enjoy the trash talking, or do you think it has no place in the sport? Anything else you want to know or comment on, please leave those comments. And also, there's a voicemail that you can leave any comments, and if there's something interesting, I'll play them on the next episode. If you want to leave a message, you can leave it up to 3 minutes in length, and that phone number is 949-415-8034. Thanks for tuning in, and see you on the next podcast.